Thank you. Good afternoon. Before I start, I guess there's always a perception when you start hearing about data and systems, IT, corporate governance, a thorn in your side, always somebody on your back. I'm not that guy. I'm a geoscientist at a very fundamental level. I work through multiple mid-tier companies, majors, as well as juniors. I understand exploration at a very basic level. I'm not a, I would say, a specialist in anything, but I do understand the workflows of exploration as well as the products required to be productive explorers as well as discovery. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the great people at Cameco. I started in this role a little more than 2 years ago, and I was given the task to get us out of a folder-centric environment into actual systems that manage data. As we all know, we are, as an industry, hordes of data. On to the next latest and greatest thing, the eternal optimists. How many bullets in the chamber? We need this, 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 and this. And, as we go through cycles, we get really caught up in the collection of data and really lose focus of what's important. What do we need at a fundamental level to be successful explorers and not get away from that, here boy, sort of feeling of, distraction and just really focus on the business. So, a little bit over 20 years with a lot of companies, a lot of different commodities, and we've put together now a system at Cameco, I think, that brings us to a fundamental level and allows us to really keep focus on the prize, which for everybody, things are hard these days, less people to do more. The corporatization of exploration, as what people phrase it, 20 years ago, everyone would leave you alone. That exploration, those weird people over there, let them go do their thing. We'll throw them a little bit of money. As long as they don't kill anybody, we're happy. Now you're getting pulled into the SHEC world, HR world, finance world, board of directors, governance. Yes, we have been corporatized, but that's what our shareholders want us to be. There's no more of the meandering through exploration. I can really, think that it's being run as a business. And that expectation is there all through companies as well as shareholders. So we're here because we need to be, and we've come up with solutions because I think it's the perfect storm that's happened probably in the last few years. I worked on similar projects like this, probably 10 years ago. It wasn't going to happen because of technology, people, and now it's, a time to shine for as far as data management. Folders are going by the wayside, and I'll show you what we've done. Cameco, an industry norm, can find data, limited cross-functional awareness, what products are in the workflow that I need that someone else delivers to me. Spending time on repetitive tasks. How many times does someone in their lifetime, as an explorationist, apply a color table, symbology, color lakes blue, repetitive tasks that really add no value. Preferential software. Everybody has what they think is what they need to do their job, and think the days that when a geologist used to be able to just say, I need this, are gone, and there needs to be, a business reason as to why we need different pieces of software. They're expensive, and a lot of it, when you start digging down, probably is not needed. Resistance to change. Like what I started out with, I am a geoscientist. When I started with Cameco, it was like, who is this person that's coming in to tell us how to manage our data and to visualize it and to present it? A lot of resistance. If you're not selling, people aren't buying. And that goes for your customers, for your managers, or for your VPs that you're trying to get money for. Sell, sell, sell. 2012, Cameco did an exploration innovation assessment. What came out of that was, geologist says that the data and sharing and moving parts weren't working. Data wasn't integrated, and there wasn't as much tools for real-time visualization and team discussions. Really, processes and software can and do solve a lot of those problems. And I guess this wasn't an exercise in, finding efficiencies to reduce budgets or to replace people. It was truly about creating more time to be deep thinkers. Finding tier 1 deposits aren't getting any easier. They're deeper, smaller, and it really requires just doing something that's not the same as the pack mentality. What I was tasked with was to standardize and consolidate all of our geoscience data in enterprise, sustainable, scalable, built-for-purpose systems that will streamline making our products and deliver our workflows. There's a little bit about, sort of the definitions of enterprise. Has to be big, has to be suitable for company-wide initiatives. Sustainable, don't get caught up with ad hoc salesmen of software that are going to tell you it's the latest and greatest. Stick with some long-term companies that really know the business. Scalability, we do deal with, it's not megabytes, it's not gigabytes anymore, it's terabytes. They have to be big systems. And built for purpose. I've dealt with quite a few consultants in my times, and if they really aren't focused on a truly targeted solution, then they really probably don't know their business, and they're just meandering through to make, get money flowing through their business. So we're going towards a more efficient, streamlined, and standardized organization. And that really came from our CEO in April of 2013, and this is part of that perfect storm that I was relating to before. There was a real business desire as well as the technology was there to advance it. Deliverables. A lot of companies get really derailed when they start looking towards a solution that'll meet 100% of your needs or your business requirements. We're in an inexact science. We really need broad pigeonholes, or as I say to some of my employees that we really need turkey holes, not pigeonholes. Nothing can be that exact if you're going to build enterprise systems. And to not really focus on the specialist functions, but to get really down to that fundamental level of what we need to do rather than what we want to do. Data sharing, problem through all companies. folders are horrible. Can't find things, duplication, redundancy, it's all there. Data visualization. So how do you, like when I was saying before, get away from people doing the real mundane, repetitive tasks on a daily basis? It really adds up over time. And data interpretation. There's some basic ways that you can get to a certain level that people just jump into interpretation rather than trying to assemble all the pieces that they require. What we were trying to accomplish was a one-stop shop for the single version of the truth, and that's now gone into not only in our geoscience data, but with our SAP data, as well as with our SharePoint documents. Data transparency, absolutely required, and this has happened over the last, like I said, a couple of years. And accomplish this through geoscience software partners of choice. And Geosoft has done tremendous things for us over the last couple of years. I've had a long-term relationship with them probably throughout my whole career, and I just can't say enough for the competencies that they deliver as, I wouldn't even say as a vendor, but as a someone that actually has skin in the game with you and helps you get to a solution in the most economic manner. Information management. Cameco has, right now we're shutting them down, but 11 network drives through all the different tiers of the business. And when you start adding them up, we've got to about 9.5 million files that were about 9.5 terabytes of data. Looking at that, how do you possibly get that amount of information out of network folders into enterprise systems? It's an undaunting task, and through this journey, Geosoft helped us a lot with cleansing our information, but it's amazing to find that probably about half of that data was duplication, and that duplication was more or less redundant and obsolete files, versions and duplication, and really a lot of trivial data, whether there be INI files, textual files, raster images, really stuff that didn't have any materiality or need for the business to be consuming. What do you really need to, I guess, run your business in an operational sense rather than a transactional sense? And this is a big task that I'm dealing with going forward. Is now that we've gone through this complete cleansing of all of our network drives, how do you prevent it from digressing to a digital landfill once again? And materiality is a big thing. What is material to the business? But there's also that personal connection that a junior person has a completely different idea of what's material to, a director or a vice president. And how do you get it across to someone what is actually material? And you can make it a process-driven response to that, where you do this function and this is the outcome, or try to make people aware that the transactional information is not important to retain. It's the outcome or the product from that transactional data, and that's what has value to the company. So the data solution for Cameco has been Acquire for our drill and geochemical data. Geosoft DAP has all of our geophysics as well as raster imagery. All the GIS data is in ArcGIS server. Our asset rights, which is our mineral rights, permitting, and agreements are all within lease control, and our documents are in SharePoint. Once you start, I guess, organizing and standardizing and centralizing your data, that's only the beginning. Now you can really start leveraging your information. And from this, you don't want people going here, there, and everywhere to get their data. So we built what is called Get It, and that stands for Geospatial and Vision Technology and Information Transfer. And that's really what I was trying to get, towards, as far as when I said that, you have to centralize, standardize, and be able to get that data onto people's desktops to be quickly able to interrogate that information. So finding it as well as visualizing it and getting it onto people's desktops. This technology also allows you to briefcase information and the end user consumes it, and there's continuous improvement and feedback into our data pillars. So what is Get It? Get It is more or less the merging of the best functionality of ArcGIS Server as well as the data moving of Geosoft app. And I said earlier, I tried to do this project probably 8 years ago, and the technology just wasn't there to be able to, I guess, marry these two systems that are very good at, managing information. And this became a reality with Get It, and that was developed. And we're going to have our launch probably next month, but it's functional and running. You look at it at face value, it doesn't really look like much, does it? Your standard, probably geological survey type solution, but a lot of time, effort, and commitment went into developing this to have all of our data in one spot. From all those pillars, as well as we use SQL reports, which does a lot of our reporting so that people can actually get information out of Acquire to understand their assay results or to understand where the chain of custody is for their sampling, and even for asset rights to understand on a project what are your commitments, as well as what rights do you retain on that project, and what actions have to be taken for reporting, renewing, or payments on those rights. So it's all fine and dandy when you're sitting in corporate office looking at all the information, but what do you do when you're out of the office? And now that we've centralized all of our data in our data center in Calgary, there is a latency involved in this, and I guess now we've taken on a data distribution model. And what I really like about this is that your data is always in one spot. There's no mysteries as to what branch office hasn't uploaded things, what's sitting on their servers across the world. And what allows you to put a lot of this information into the centralized data service is a lot of replication that occurs, as well as harnessing a lot of virtual desktoping that's coming into, I guess it's maturity, if you would like to use that term. There's a lot of great technologies as far as VMware that you can have these great servers in a centralized spot, remote into them, and it's almost like you're working on your desktop now. And for offices for us, we have offices in other jurisdictions. Perth, for example, there was no way that this was going to work in Australia, and we built servers in Perth that now replicate all the data overseas, and they access it through the Get It interface, which resides in Australia as well. The other thing that I really like about this model is that I don't know how many people here have move through businesses and through expansion and contraction, but usually my position was sort of I would say the cockroach of the, I guess, these regional offices, and I was always the last man out the door. Geologists were always the first people out the door, and I was always tasked with cleaning up. And cleaning up, if we embrace this model, is a thing of the past. It's a matter of shutting down servers and moving on. Even right now with we have, I think it's now 9 servers, which we call BOBs, branch offices in the box. They come in a large ruggedized case and on wheels. We just wheel them into our exploration camps and turn them on. All the data replicates what they need and they're up and running. Really, as far as expansion and contraction, we can almost, like I would say, Army-centric, that you can just roll these things in, plug them in, and you can have a regional office up and operating probably within a day. And that certainly is nice that you don't have to invest a lot in getting people the information they require. So once you get in to get it, our software of choice on our desktops for, again, the fundamental products is ArcMap and Geosoft Target. And once you decide which information you want in the 2D or the 3D, you simply click that you want to extract it. It zips up all the information that you had seen on the web interface, and you open up an MXD file for ArcMap, and you're automatically into the 2D or the 3D world with all the standardized templating, whether that's your strip logs or your sectioning or simply your drill logs. Everything is there in a standardized format, and you're actually quickly getting the information you require. It's visualized in a way that's Cameco centric, and you're starting to analyze data rather than digging and turning lakes blue. So far we've centralized about 18,000 drill holes, 650 geophysical surveys, all the GIS data for 40 global projects, 8,000 agreements in title, and we're currently working on the SharePoint migration, which is about 700,000 documents. And it's up and running. Efficiencies, my personal budget has gone down probably 35%, as well as our software footprint has gone down 25%, and the data storage has been realized about $30,000 a year saved on network server space. So what's next? We're not going mining meteorites, that's for sure, but a lot of focus will be going on virtualization in the next couple of years. We have a large turnover of high-powered laptops, and I'm hopeful that with having servers, large servers and virtual desktops available to everyone, that will be going to more of probably a Surface Pro sort of approach, that people can use that to get all their information, log into the centralized server, and just be able to work pretty much anywhere globally and not need to be in an office. Geoscience 365, I sort of think that that's a good way of terming it, but similar to an Office 365 environment where you go in, all the software is available that you need to do your job, and it's all visualized, and you can collaborate. That's the same way that we want to go. ArcMap is already being able to work in a virtualized environment, working with Geosoft to get Target into the virtual environment. working with Leapfrog, it will be virtualized, as well as GoCAD now is promoting a very nice suite which will allow it to be work in a virtual environment. BI, the buzzword of the day. Yes, we can do that, and we are doing a lot of dashboarding on that, as well as, I guess that's to visualize where the business is at, but the business analytics part is, we have all this data. How can people possibly be able to analyze it? Let's say, even in the Athabasca Basin, that's just a small footprint, but the amount of data is just overwhelming. And again, we're working with Geosoft on a simple tool. We've all heard this term as far as, looking at information and how do you quickly, I guess, vector in on the low-hanging fruit, whatever that geoscience data is, to be able to then start, picking it apart and finding out why it is different. So SOM is going to play a role in our business analytics. What is the low-hanging fruit that you have to look up at, and is standardized enough on a regional play to make it make sense, and you don't get these false anomalies. But it's a big undertaking, but it's coming along, and people are always wary that we're going to replace everybody with software. That's not the fact. It's simply to be able to put people's eyes on a prize, perhaps, and I'm really looking forward to that as well. As far as Cameco's data goes, as far as partner data, when you start throwing that in, competitor data, or starting to have completely different business models as far as, data joint ventures. If you are in a brownfields area, what would prevent you from making data joint ventures with people along the same trend, throwing everything together and coming up with some business analytics that would maybe be a completely different exploration model that no one ever thought of. So I guess that's what the future looks like for Cameco and hopefully the industry. Thank you.
Mike, we have a question from Shanti online. He says, Mike, I hope the DAP server has been is very useful in addressing all of the concerns of all people involved and readily provides data for instant use. How was your experience?
DAP's a great product, as far as geophysics goes. It is a platform of choice. I've worked with DAP probably for, since I would say probably 15 years, let's say. And, it's been a great product. Geosoft, again, is a tremendous partner. They helped me through all my pains. And, even with this data distribution now, Geosoft is very, they want to sell other DAP servers, but we didn't need DAP servers, for our distribution model, and they worked with us, and now we have, for I guess the term that we're using is slave DAPs in other places in the world that, push the data to it. So they understand our business, they understand our needs, and they work with us. And I can't say enough about it, the technology or the people.
Thank you. Any questions in the audience?
One of the big concerns in the industry today is the interface between geology and mining, that we're hearing consistently. Fails of mining. Things like faults that were never recognized and are now major water inflows causing mines to fail, geometallurgical problems, etc. You've addressed a lot about the exploration side. What are you doing about interfacing geology information with mining and project development?
That would be my 6th pillar. I told people that we were going to limit ourselves to 5 pillars. There's probably going to be a 6th pillar in there that will address most of the geology and the modeling, and where, I guess, all the geoscience data comes together. And, exploration is not the end of, I guess, the discovery cycle or the geology cycle, but when is the appropriate time to gate it and just turn it over, to divest it from the exploration portfolio? And I think that that's a bigger challenge as well as for the industry, is to understand when it transitions to that next phase and what are the deliverables that is expected of exploration before it makes that transition. So we are addressing that geology component in the modeling sense. Does that answer your question?
I think that's great, Mike. It's a really interesting talk, and something that I think a lot of people are challenged with is particularly 100-year-old companies that keep buying other companies. There's just data everywhere. And I'm just wondering, as you start rolling out this new process, is everybody getting on board pretty well, or are you going to have to incentivize people to stop working offline, or when they're traveling or they're in a hurry, or are there processes in place to sort of manage that to keep the momentum going?
I've seen a lot of companies deal with this in different ways. They can either really make it process-driven, where you check things out, check things back in. That didn't work, I've seen. I've also seen companies try to get administrators to chase people around for that information. That doesn't work. My approach to this is transparency and peer pressure. I hope that if someone knows that you are the geochemist or the geophysicist and what you need to do your job is not transparent and available to that project, they'll go to you directly and make sure that you get it uploaded. So I'm hopeful that peer pressure and transparency will solve that, because I don't think it's technology.
Any other questions? We had one more from Shanti online. He wanted to know if you're willing to share the operational costs and number of people that were involved in implementing DAP and your other systems.
Sure. From going to a folder system to this, it's been 2 years, and probably a team of 5 dedicated people at Cameco. As well as Geosoft has helped us tremendously, and so not a tremendous investment, just hitting what you really need to do, rubber to the road, and having a real strong support of our board of directors. I think that was really key for me, is to drive this, is really a lot about the data security as well. People don't like having data floating around anymore. It needs to be centralized, and we're going full circle back to mainframes as far as I'm concerned. One of my VPs asked me, what are you doing about data security? And my answer was, well, you'd sort of be foolish if you were to think that data hasn't walked out the door. That wasn't a good answer, and luckily one of the people, my strongest supporter, said, well, we're centralizing data, and that way people don't move around with it, we're virtualizing it, and that was the right answer.
Shanti's a scientist with the Atomic Energy Group in India, and he's also asking, is your system addressing all issues, and are there any additional issues that still need to be addressed?
I don't think we'll ever address every issue, and it's just at to the right level that it's efficient, productive, and people get what they want. And if your business is different, if you're trying to hit that 100 percentile, you're going to go into the weeds and waste a lot of effort.
I was just wondering, in terms of going through all the data, trying to automate identifying the types and spatial extents of it, were there automated tools versus, how much manual work was involved in doing that kind of thing?
Some things are manageable. Certainly SharePoint isn't. Geophysics, Geosoft has a lot of tools, proprietary tools that'll help you cleanse and migrate into DAP. GIS, it's more of a manual cleanup. SharePoint, again, we're working with Geosoft to cleanse all that data, and with some other partners to be able to push that information over. So right now the biggest, I would say, the largest prize is to be able to push all the SharePoint data in and get that spatially referenced.
We have one final question from Bill Morris. He asks how you're handling version control.
That, we don't really deal with versioning. You know, yes, there's some data that we say that it's been superseded or it's inactive, but as far as, you know, tracking how a polyline grows over its life cycle, I don't really see much value in that. You know, you look at SharePoint, for example, you know, it has some great versioning tools in it. I don't think I've ever used it. I guess it's where's the joy that you get out of versioning.